Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining us on today's Nonprofit Growth Lab. It's great to be back after a month or two of busyness here at the GUHQ. Peer-to-peer forum was great, and a lot of happenings in between. We'll touch on some of that, what's happening with Good United at the back end of today's webinar in terms of new platforms, new technology, new stuff to help nonprofits raise money on Facebook more effectively. For those of you who have not met me or you're new to this nonprofit growth lab thing, my name is Adam O'Brien. I'm head of marketing here at Good United, and I'm really excited to be here today. I have my coworker Molly, who I love and adore and is phenomenal on the growth aspect of social media fundraising, joining me in just a few minutes. But today is all about using Facebook Messenger to drive more engagement organically today, which is great, and talking about how you can save money, think about it strategically, and how to understand how Facebook sits in this kind of strategy that should be viewed as helping and assisting other communication channels like email, text message. I'll have Molly kind of give her thoughts on where that fits in, but let's get moving here. So today's roadmap, if you hadn't seen the email come out this morning, let's cover that again real quick. And as always, I'm always asked, hey, Adam, is this going to be on demand? Of course, we'll do our best to get this posted either today or at very latest tomorrow afternoon on demand on our website and through an email follow-up to y'all that registered, roughly about 1 p.m. Eastern. That'll come out tomorrow, so be on the lookout. As far as today, going through a couple quick things. Facebook just announced a few updates, very specifically around reintegrating Messenger back into the main Facebook app. We'll talk to Molly about that, what the implications are for you and your teams. We'll talk about Facebook Messenger and Nonprofit Manager, kind of discuss the options that we have to augment or use Messenger to help communicate with your supporters automatically with very little effort. And then we'll jump into Stop Soldier Suicide. We'll talk about why they end up using Messenger to help announce a pretty big thing, a pretty big accomplishment for their organization, and the outcomes of that. I won't pull any headlines too much, but $14,000 saved on ad engagement, 240x in engagement. We'll actually walk through. That is not a fake number that I made up as much as I would have loved to, and what that means and how your organization can take those same steps or start to think about strategy using Messenger to boost engagement as well. At the very back end, we'll touch on some of the new things that Good United's introducing. So if you're intrigued by what we talk about throughout the course of this and want to understand what we do and what we're offering, that's going to be the tail end. And then we'll close it out with Q&A. As always, we're trying something new. This platform called StreamYard is something that is new for us. Normally it's Zoom. If you've been with us, know that we've been testing some things on and off. This seems to be the final resting place. We really like this as a team, but there'll be comments that you can drop in similar to what we've done in the past. I'll do my best to answer those live between Molly and myself, as well as we'd love your feedback, whether it be follow-up email after this or drop in the comments if this feels like it's something that we should keep doing. So far, I'm impressed. I've got Brenna over here helping me with the back end controls. She likes it. Molly seems to like it. So I think we're on a good thing here. And Jennifer says they've been using it for 3 years. Love it. And this is good. Jennifer, I think we'll stick here then. Awesome. So before we launch, a couple upcoming events. Like we haven't been spending the last 6 weeks just kind of hanging out by the beach here in Charleston. Thankfully, we've been doing a lot of planning and a lot of prepping. You see on the calendar, we've got 4 very much key events. We're trying to do webinars now at a pace of roughly one every 2 to 3 weeks. And we're actually introducing a brand new layout and a brand new format called Fundraising Heroes. In addition to Nonprofit Growth Lab. Nonprofit Growth Lab will very much similar, stay the same, focusing on bringing industry trends, understanding what's going on in the digital fundraising space, as well as providing how-tos, such as the early June boot camp that we're going to end up running for Nonprofit Manager. A lot of organizations get into Facebook giving tools. They have no idea where to go next. We're going to help to unlock some of the easy wins and understand what the next advanced steps are. That's a great example of NGL continuing to do its thing. And then Fundraising Heroes is similar to the format that we're using today to some extent. We're going to be bringing in organizations that we work with specifically and helping us to understand, or helping nonprofits to understand, how to better use Facebook Messenger, Facebook giving tools, and challenges to take your organization to the next level. The next level being understanding where revenue is coming from, how to organically drive interaction like we're touching on today through Messenger, things of that nature, where we'll actually have people, our great team that we work with, both internally as well as our customers, jump on. I'm really excited for Chelsea Edwards from CCA, where we're talking about how they actually used Messenger to convert mission awareness. They have a very large following. It's very sticky organically on their Facebook page, and how we turn that into, or how we worked with them to turn that into fundraising revenue. We just created a case study that we'll send out after this particular nonprofit growth lab event, but you'll see all of these. I'll hyperlink all these, provide the sign up pages for y'all and follow up emails, so you can then make sure to jump on where you want to go. Okay, I think that's it for what we got going on for housekeeping stuff. We're going to tag in Molly. Molly is a senior growth manager here at Good United. I love working with her. Every time I talk to her, I learn something new. Thankfully, of course, maybe I'm not sure if I'm not that smart to begin with, but Molly, welcome to today. You're joining us again. I had you back in October. Feels like 3 years ago for the Facebook Teardown Challenge. And you did such a phenomenal job. I had to get you back in here. How are you doing today, Molly?
Hi, Adam. I'm doing great, and thank you for the warm welcome.
Perfect. All right, cool. So for those of you who are joining in, here's what we're doing today. It's really focused on Facebook Messenger, and particularly there's a few things that we'll cover. First of all, we'll give you kind of an analyst point of view on some of the recent updates. I'll ask Molly her opinions on what this means in regards to impact for nonprofits, and then we'll jump into some more of the how-tos at the tail end. We've got roughly about 53 minutes, Molly. Keep me honest on the time. Brenna, you too. But let's kick this off. Okay, so if you missed it back in, I believe, early March, so just roughly about a month ago, amongst a handful of other announcements that Meta made, it was this kind of news blip about the intention to at least test this idea of re-merging or reintegrating Messenger, which has been a standalone app since I think 2013 or something to that effect, back into the primary Facebook app. Now, to be clear, I don't know if they're doing away with the Messenger app completely. So this is the idea of moving your Messenger inbox to be accessible and utilized within the Facebook app. But here's the key points that as I was reading through a couple articles, I know I sent one out, I believe this morning in an email to y'all, as well as I mentioned a couple times, I think TechCrunch did it best for me, where they were largely seeing this move from Meta as a way to further compete with TikTok, which may be a moot point by the time we get to the end of this year, depending on how all of those legal we'll say challenges go in terms of will TikTok stay available in the US or not, beside the point. But this further focuses Meta's really intention to compete with TikTok in terms of a content discovery platform, which is a very interesting thing and kind of a slight departure in my point of view from what it was originally intended to be, which was this focal point of like a primary like person-to-person messaging app, which is still that. But you think about, Molly, for what I use Messenger for, and I was one of probably the majority of who was irritated that I had to download a Messenger app, which sucked. I mean, I text messages, for crying out loud. But why did I have to go there to message my friends, which I never did? I texted them, right? Marketplaces run through that, which was super annoying to post. Marketplace stuff, fundraising stuff, I'd have to go and leave the app when I wanted to support missions that I do outside of Good United. This now opens the door for a much better user experience, but then also the long-term idea, and Molly, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm thinking about this, is the intent, like functionally, is to be able to enable or encourage people then to see articles, see content they like, and share that quickly. Similar to what I do with Brenna and my wife and a lot of people on Instagram. Same concept, same idea, same engagement is what they're intending to bring along. And I think this plays into our conversation coming along in a few slides when we get into using that Messenger to engage. But from your point of view, Molly, and you work with a lot of nonprofits with how to effectively deploy Messenger strategically too. What does this mean to you and maybe our nonprofit organizations that are on the call today?
I mean, it's huge. I could not be more excited. So as you mentioned, this was split. So Facebook was split from Messenger into two different apps around 2013, early 2014. And the reason being was it was a better experience. But they reversed that, and I'm happy they did, because I think they absolutely identified that not only did they have to be more competitive with different social apps, but they also noticed behavior changing. So like a lot of the people interacting on Instagram and TikTok and even Facebook now are not really engaging on news feeds as much as they used to anymore. A majority of the engagement, like you mentioned, of sharing gifts or reels are happening in DMs. So one, it's to kind of facilitate more of that messenger engagement one-to-one, but they're also identifying that businesses and nonprofits have a huge opportunity as well to communicate with their supporters in Messenger.
Perfect. And I just dropped the link to the TechCrunch article I'm talking about too as well. And I think it's a unique point, I think, as this opens it up for the idea of how do we use this, harness this for Facebook fundraisers, for challenges on Facebook, and overall, like changing perhaps the preconceived notion that that's all Facebook is good for. I know there's a lot of things that we'll touch on a bit about declining engagement overall. There's still this lurking question of there's existing communities that nonprofits and really organizations everywhere have intentionally built, but there's no way to activate it. This is a step forward to make that a little bit easier from that perspective. So if you have any questions or concerns or think that this is wild from Meta, I have yet to run into anyone who doesn't think this is a good idea. One less app to worry about, one less thing for me to have to figure out how to manage. It's perfect. So maybe maybe my battery life will actually last a little bit longer. Okay. And then Betsy, we'll do our best. Brent, if you wouldn't mind figuring out what I copied wrong there on that link, let me, Betsy, we'll get on that for you. Okay. Also, the other thing too, and Molly, you're probably more intricately involved and can explain this a lot better than I can at a micro level. Back in, I think, October, we'll say bleeding into November area frame, there were some very critical Messenger updates that were provided. We're going backwards a little bit, but this is still important to outline here. Is the very specific and intentional decision from Meta to have people, I mean, see that screenshot, it might be a little bit small. The default opt-in to Messenger for all fundraisers and donors was checked, right? You had to like actually go through a click process to opt out, which if people are just clicking next, they're automatically a subscriber. And I'm going to pause there because the idea of a subscriber is still fairly new. There's a lot of things that go into this that will also weave into the following conversation over the next 20, 30 minutes. Molly, what does actually a subscriber mean from a nonprofit's point of view when we're looking at Messenger and the ability to actually interact with people on a consistent and frequent basis?
So a subscriber you can think about is a fundraiser, a donor, or just someone that organically messages your page. So you have the ability, once someone starts a conversation with you or default opts into Messenger, to continue that communication over time until they explicitly opt out of messaging or say they do not want to receive messaging anymore. So default opt-in, this was a huge update for us and for our partners. Since this announcement at the end of last year, we have seen subscriber growth go crazy. So we're seeing huge growth from the most highly engaged donors and fundraisers. I think that's really important to call out, that like the people that are default opting in took an action already. So it's extremely important that we begin to steward them and thank them and appreciate them and deepen our relationship with them after that action's taken. And Facebook made it a lot easier for us to do that with this update.
Cool. I like easy. Everyone likes easier. And this concept really plays into kind of the next spots here. And this is where I'll take a little bit less of a seat. And Molly, you are the expert. And so to set the stage for this, as we think about how those updates play directly into Nonprofit Manager, and within Nonprofit Manager, there are a handful of things similar to the auto opt-in, or I guess the opt-out, if you will, that coincide with this idea of there's definitely a focal point of effort being put on by Meta to make Messenger a more useful tool for nonprofits. And what we're seeing on the screen right here is two specific functions or features that were introduced over the last probably, it's April now, goodness, 23 is running by. Last 4, maybe 5, 6 months that from my understanding, my conversations with a lot of nonprofit organizations of all sizes are still relatively unknown. Molly, what are we looking at and why is this important? And you think about the evolution of using Messenger and Nonprofit Manager and giving tools as a whole to further steward relationships and ensure that everyone's getting the warm welcome, the special, we'll say the fuzzies, whenever they interact with brand.
So Nonprofit Manager was released, and essentially what it did is it consolidated your fundraising tools and gave you new ones. They release this to everyone, every nonprofit that's registered on Facebook. But what this will do is it will allow you to automate a lot of things that are very time consuming and get the ball rolling with your supporters. Right here, what you're seeing is the automated thank you feature in Nonprofit Manager. While this might seem really small, this is massive for any size organization. I personally have done the task of manually thanking fundraisers, and it's difficult. And if you get behind, it's really difficult to catch up as well. So what this does is it parses out birthday fundraisers and general fundraisers and allows you to actually personalize that message to be automatically posted on a wall within 3 hours of that fundraiser being created.
Perfect. And thanks for that clarification, Molly. And Daria, looks like there was a question here. Can you think of any reason why I only can see thanks for fundraisers and not the second option for birthday fundraisers? I know there was some slow rolling from Meta's aspect of some of these features. Is that still going on? I would imagine, or is anything tied to the old versus new experience page that I know we often have to battle with as well?
So there are features that are available only on new page experience. Most of Nonprofit Manager is only available on new page experience. What I will say is like they do slowly kind of roll out features and they also A/B test a lot. So I go in here pretty much every single day. And I've noticed a lot of changes where buttons are missing or things are removed. So it may be an A/B test, but we're definitely happy to look into that deeper for you after this call and see what's going on.
Cool. And thank you for that clarification, Molly and Daria. I'll get with you a follow up here to make sure we can at least get some sort of firm direction if we can. Perfect. And I think the next slide too also plays into that. I know you've taken I don't even count the hours, Molly, and I'm sure a lot of people and organizations on this call right now can say, yeah, we've gone through and done that manual aspect. You see, you can do it on one-to-one basis here on that right-hand side of the screenshot. Now there's a couple things going on here. Won't focus so much on how to separate or segment the different supporter types, but it's that button on the side. Like you do have the ability to go through and message individually. However, what we're about to launch into and talking about how Stop Soldier Suicide decided to do this, sidestep some of that manual process, actually a lot of that manual process, and really in 5, 10, 15 minutes, really just it took a different shape of things for them through Messenger. This view, though, like, Molly, can you walk me through why this is important to understand, both from a general high-level context and then the messaging aspect as well?
Yeah, so this is the first time you actually have like a dynamic view of your donors and fundraisers. So you can see their name, you can see what they did last for you, and you can see what supporter category they fall into and reach out to them in the way that they determine was best. Most of the time, you'll see this being Messenger because it's the easiest way to communicate with them, and they want you to communicate there. But this is a phenomenal tool. What I will say is you do have the ability to kind of go in there and one by one send very personalized messages. That's very time consuming. There's also a feature where you can bulk message. So if you want to send kind of like, I would call it a broadcast to a larger group of people in this view, you have the ability to do that. Overall, it's a great update because it gives you a lot more transparency into your supporters in real time. But I will say it's really difficult to scale from here. Because beyond that one bulk message, it's difficult to kind of continue that conversation, which is what we want to do. We want them to have a journey over time that drives repeat action or a first time action.
And that's such a great point too. And I'll speak for marketers everywhere on this one. If I'm thinking about segmentation, I'm thinking about personalization. I'm going to take a one personalized message over a generic nondescript thousands of them. But also I know that there is a time and a place and a strategy where there's some in between. What I want to point out too there, Molly, is this a single message? If you're using that bulk option to broadcast, like, is that a single message? It's not a chain. It's not actually a true conversation, correct?
It's one single message. So
Okay.
you will just type in the copy and select who you would like to send it to.
Okay. And that's great for what kind of purposes would you recommend for those listening on the call that, are just getting into this? Like, what are those applications that you would recommend to start with toying with from that broadcast aspect?
So one thing I would recommend, so the feature previous to this, where it was the automated thank you, if you do not have those set up, once you set them up, they are going to start and look forward. So it's going to be your proactive way of thinking. I would use this to kind of retroactively thank anyone that might have been missed. So you can send like an appreciation post. Not necessarily the best use for calls to action, I would say, because it would be pretty difficult to track here. But definitely just a message to say, hey, we see you, we appreciate you, and give them a little bit more information about you.
Perfect. And this does play a role into what we got next. And before we move to the next slide, Danny was saying that, hey, they've had birthday fundraiser option for a while. We are in the new pages experience. That's great. If you wouldn't mind, for those of you using these features, drop a comment. Let's know if these are working for you. We're always curious because as much as we have a great relationship with Meta, there's also some things that get tested that we find out after the fact they're launched, or we'll get early access, or we'll find out through conversations. And it's always a fun Wild West type of thing on the smaller iterative tweaks. So if you have experiences, if you have success stories, drop them in the comments down as we move on. Always love to see those. And thank you, Danny, for dropping that comment in and confirming that. So this leads to really, now with the stage set of Messenger, kind of the default things you can do within Nonprofit Manager, and some of the limitations also, everything about conversational aspects of messaging, the ability to broadcast, but a single broadcast or just a single thank you follow-up. Talk to me. You are intimately involved with the Stop Soldier Suicide organization. This was, if I remember correctly, February, right? Mid-February. I remember distinctly being in the office and hearing a handful of people just continue to sit around their monitor, clicking refresh on this Facebook post and not understanding quite exactly what was happening in terms of the outcomes. But let's set the stage properly. So I'll set the mission. The mission for Stop Soldier Suicide, they're a phenomenal organization that we have the privilege to support, that the name is very much what their mission is. They're here to stop soldier suicide. And granted, there's different aspects that they do this. This particular instance, though, they were looking to basically supercharge the announcement that the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs awarded their team and their organization the Mission Daybreak Grand Challenge Top Prize to accelerate their black box project. Now, without butchering it, Molly, too much, I believe that was specifically tied to using technology and AI to take devices and different aspects of technology to try and use and find a pathway, if you will, to understand the trigger points to help prevent soldier suicide further. Phenomenal use and application of technology and AI, and it's something that's very much worthy of this award. Now, they were launching into a traditional, for those marketers, a traditional PR run, press release, a handful of other avenues, and they had one specific post that they put on Facebook. I'm going to pause there because this is the story where Molly picks up and helps the team over there do some really incredible things. And I don't want to minimize the effort by saying with very little effort, but Molly, can you kind of walk us through what led to the use of Facebook Messenger, how it was deployed, and really where it went from there? We have a next slide on to kind of talk through the results, but like set that story up for me.
Well, I just want to again give a huge shout out to Stop Soldier Suicide. This is a huge achievement. I've been following their Black Box project for years now. And it's phenomenal to see that they're getting recognition from all of the hard work they've done. And I'm just honored to have worked on this project and supported them. But essentially what we did was we wanted to find a way to re-engage their Messenger subscribers. They have a lot of them at the moment because they've been working with us for quite a while. So we wanted to give their Messenger subscribers not only a heads up and information that they won this amazing award and what an achievement it was, but we wanted to give them the opportunity to engage and share that post and repost the announcement on their Facebook page. So how I did that was I identified a group of their subscribers. I sent them a message. One thing I want to call out with why this kind of varies from nonprofit manager is we have the ability at Good United to create what we call messenger journeys. And the best practices that we follow are to be conversational. So we want to create a journey that does not feel like spam. It doesn't feel like automation. We want it to be conversational. And to me, conversational messaging kind of means there's graceful exits. There's not really long-winded email-like content that can be lost in the fold. And also knowing that almost 98% of Messenger users are on mobile devices, it's hugely important that you create a Messenger experience that is engaging and fits them in where they're interacting.
That's such a great point too. One of the notes I had written down for you and I to discuss, and this feels like a good time. There's a couple things here too. One is channels, communication channels specifically. As a marketing professional, and you are in the same boat as I am on this one, and probably a lot of people here today, is this idea of like, how do I differentiate my channels in communication structure? Now, when it came to Stop Soldier Suicide, they were doing a handful of things already. Email, I know they rolled it out through, I think, a more formal press release on their website. Like, how did Messenger play a factor into, hey, this is a channel that we could use to engage through, in this case, one of Good United's very specific messaging journeys. But like, how did that play into the thought process of, hey, like, there's obviously community, and for those of we'll get into the community aspect a little bit later, but there's a community. Like, how do we engage and operationalize, if you will?
I think it's as simple as keep people where they are and make it as frictionless as possible. And before we talked about how Facebook made the decision to put Messenger back into their core app, but even with them being separate apps at this time, it is a really, really frictionless experience for a call to action to be taken from Messenger to Facebook, or just to continue to stay in Messenger. So I believe it was extremely successful because it was a soft ask, I would say, that had a huge impact, but it also was frictionless, and it was very clear to the user what we were asking them to do and why it was so impactful.
Okay, you said soft ask. Let's play like I'm struggling to understand what that is. I'm new to this. What's a soft ask? And I assume the opposite is a hard ask. Like, what are the differences between those two?
I would say a soft ask is more about driving engagement. So the primary key performance indicator of a soft ask is we want someone to open the message. We want someone to engage with the message in some way, but we don't necessarily expect them to start a fundraiser or make a donation of a monetary value. A hard ask, I would say, could be seen as like an end of year giving campaign, where the first message you send is saying like, hi, it's end of year. Can you please make a donation or create a fundraiser? There's a time and place for both. But what we found is you can't expect someone to kind of convert into a hard ask or a monetary ask without priming them and building a relationship along the way.
That's a great point. And if you think about the strategy behind this, and I find myself doing the same thing as a marketing person trying to drive interest and engagement, is to understand the channels and the intent, right? Email is a great place for hard ass. It's also very much a bulk informational download. It's got its absolute values, and it probably, honestly, for its intents and where it works best, won't be replaced. Same thing with text. Although, like, I saw a post on LinkedIn that did a great job summarizing where places for email, text, and Messenger fit. Messenger is kind of this cool in between, like not quite super personal, but not quite informal of email, where you can send the asks that are like, hey, there's still that conversational manner, still personalized, but it still gets the job done. The reason why I bring that up is the impact that we have displayed here. And I have a few messages about where to find subscribers. Darlene and Jennifer, we'll get to that in just a second, I promise. These aren't always apple to apples, right? Molly, when you think about Messenger and email specifically, people love to pick and cherry pick statistics. I tend to lean more towards the holistic idea that everything works together for greater good when it comes to comms channels. But you cannot ignore this understanding of 89% open rate, a 30% click-through rate. We'll get to how 240x engagement actually translated in real actual numbers. We'll see the post. But then also the side bonus on top of everything, that awareness worth 14K, will actually walk you through how that happened too. But you think about the standard rates, open rates of an email, the click-through rates. I think the standard is benchmarks, I'll say, is, you're lucky if you're getting 15 to 25% open rate on email, depending on the size of your organization. Click-through rates are in the single digits, maybe the low double digits, 11, 12, 13%. And engagement's lower than that. I know because I deal with that every week on the emails that we send for Good United, let alone for nonprofits, which nonprofits generally are going to be a little higher because there's a active community. People want to support and they want to know what's going on, right? But there's also a fine balance of how much do we message, how often we go after. I know what, and I think I've repeated this on Nonprofit Growth Lab many times. So prove me if digitally boo me, but like you should be contacting your donors regardless of the size, if they're major or not, 5 to 6 times with some sort of update, some soft ask where you're not asking for anything monetarily. Every single time. And there's a lot of nonprofits that we end up talking with that aren't thinking that through, quite frankly. And we are, Molly, correct me if I'm wrong again, but crux of it is building relationships. That's why we exist at Good United. We just happen to use technology to do that efficiently. And from that aspect, Jennifer asked 5 to 6 times. I think from the statistic I saw, 5 to 6 times between hard asks. So that could be up to you to understand or kind of feel out how often you want to do that. For some organizations, they do a great job at being very consistent weekly. Some are a little less frequent. Some are every other day, to be honest. I get destroyed when it comes to Giving Tuesday season with my poor inbox. So hopefully that answers your question. I'll be happy to take that offline and talk to you through that and kind of understand what you're doing now versus where you should go. I think the TLDR for that is, feel it out, but think from your supporters aspect, right? Molly, from your point of view, going back to my original point here before I get too lost in the weeds, email, not versus, but supplemental with Messenger. There's a very distinct path to take there. From your point of view, with this particular Stop Soldier Suicide case, is this abnormal for us to see this kind of engagement level on a Messenger, we'll say, campaign?
So I would say this campaign is a little bit different than what we've seen before. So overall, the open rate and the engagement is not different. So we consistently see high open rate, upwards of 89 to 95% open rates in Messenger, and a standard or a baseline of 30% engagement. We're also consistently trying to improve upon that with conversational design and messaging. So one thing I do want to add is one of the benefits of using Facebook is also that it is a two-way conversation. So a lot of the campaigns I've run in the past, though they might not drive the revenue that we were expecting, or a significant amount of revenue, we often learn more from those that don't take the action. Because if they do not take the action, we have the ability to ask them why or what they would like to do next, and then further kind of personalize their experience to help them take a more relevant action in the future. So overall, I would say the engagement or like the lack of drop off from Messenger to taking the action of liking and reposting and commenting on the Stop Soldier Suicide post on their Facebook page was enormous. And I would say that's definitely a result of how much they've invested and stewarded their supporters for the last 2 years.
That's perfect. And here we see that slide that outlines not only the results that are just as important, but really the context of what Molly laid out. And here's a quick understanding of two things. One is we see on that right-hand side where I believe we started. The post started before we did the messaging journey. And I think it took not even more than like 5 or 10 minutes to start spiking. And like spiking is ridiculous. Like we took the engagements, the reach, the likes, the shares, all of this compounded into, I think within the 240X stood at about 72-hour mark is where we calculated. And it carried over even more outside of that 3-day window. Mm-hmm. That was done on a Thursday, maybe a Friday, if I remember correctly. Friday? Correct. Yeah, the office was a ghost town, so I remember that well.
Friday. I remember it well too.
So you think about going into the weekend, which makes it to me even more impressive, and really can't stress enough the value of building a community that's sticky, that supports your cause, but then also continuing to provide value. This was a soft ask. This was as easy as, hey, all we need is just for you to take 5 seconds to share this. And it took off. Like it took off. If you can't see it small in there, and if you run Facebook ads or the Facebook page for your nonprofit, you've probably seen this on posts where it'll say, hey, like you want to get 63 more people to view this, give us $14 and we're good. You back that into it. That's how you say the 14K, right? And that was with how much, like Molly, roundabout time. Like, and again, the figure does not really outline the effort, to be very clear, but how much time did it take us to actually deploy the messaging journey to ask and then start seeing results?
I think the most time consuming part was definitely nailing down the messaging. So I probably spent about an hour to 2 hours kind of just like developing the messaging journey. And of course, getting that approved by Stop Soldier Suicide. But then after that, it was like a hit of the button. So that's when I kind of can't like take my eyes away from the screen. And yeah, that consumed my Friday, which was great. But it was so awesome to just see as soon as that message started to be delivered, how enormous the engagement was, how that was translating to the post itself. And again, like this was a campaign that was not primarily revenue focused, but the outcome saved SSS a lot of money. And it also drove reach and brand awareness that they would not have had without it. And additionally, just deepened the relationship and commitment from their supporters that took that action. So I think that although we might think of soft asks as just kind of like engagement and not really driving any other value than engagement, there's so much more lifetime value that is actually being driven through these campaigns that will have benefits in the future.
That's a great point. And can we take a second, if you're okay with it, Molly, to talk about engagement on social media and how it pertains to existing and potential future communities that nonprofits are building. So from my perspective, coming from a B2B enterprise marketing background, we, outside of nonprofits, which is honestly a completely different viewpoint of social media as a whole, have always kind of laughed about, yeah, it's fluff. We can never get our CEOs or our leaders or executive teams to buy into the understanding of why we invest in social media. It's hard to quantify brand exposure. It's very much in majority of companies' eyes, a fluffy thing that you do for investors or something to make yourselves look good when it comes time for X, Y, and Z events. But ultimately, it never led into revenue, a bottom line dollar figure. I found out very quickly joining the Good United team, and after serving for a small nonprofit over the last couple of years, like that is a completely different point of view. As Facebook continues to invest and bring about more tools, And Jennifer says, I'm not alone. Cool. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate the support on this one. But this is so unique because I've lived since I've got here, and Molly, you're laughing because you've been here a lot longer than I have, in this world of like revenue out of Facebook. It's wild to me. And it's really impressive that you can capitalize. And when I say that, I mean like you can make everything that you can out of an existing and growing community. But there is still some aspect of, Molly, from your point of view, would you recommend using this story to go pitch a case of why we should continue to post on Facebook from a nonprofit's point of view, regardless of size? Or is this maybe a way to think about Messenger and Facebook as a whole a little bit differently?
I have a lot. So overall, like there is value in posting on Facebook. There have been changes to Facebook that have made it really, really difficult to scale or get organic engagement off those posts. You see it in groups, you see it on main pages of like the largest nonprofits having 10 to 20 likes or reactions on a post. And that is because Facebook is prioritizing user generated content. And they're also prioritizing Messenger. So it's not a bad thing. There's just ways in which we kind of have to work around to like drive that organic engagement. One way we found is, again, like user generated content. So using polls, for example, or prompting page followers or group members to kind of start posting and make that community take a life of its own, because I know for a fact that Facebook prioritizes user generated content over an org making a post on their page.
As we dime it, what UGC? I was so confused when I first got here. Yeah, user generated comp. We just love our acronyms so much here. And I think that's a great point too. Of there's a healthy mix. Like there's a time for brand and mission awareness and helping to push that gas pedal, and there's time to understand where for me it's like, how do I re-engage birthday fundraisers from last year ahead of time, so I know I can start to. I mean, it's widely understood that birthday fundraisers are kind of like the Wild West. Like they're known quantity. It's hard to predict. But if you can start to use something about Messenger and how to re-engage past birthday fundraisers, maybe there's some sort of predictability. Same thing with challenges. I know we have a great, we'll say, fundraising heroes. I'm getting mixed up my nonprofit growth lab coming out in June about exactly that, using past challenge participants and re-engaging and reactivating them for the next steps, right? I'm excited about that one. I'm working with you again, so you're basically my new partner in crime here. But it does have value. I'm curious, for those of you that are having troubles kind of justifying the concept of being on Facebook and investing time, whether it be on content, ads, challenges, trying to figure out what to do or what in the world to do with giving tools too, drop a comment. I'm curious to get people's feedback and understanding. I've had a lot of organizations, smaller organizations that I've talked with over the last 6 weeks specifically, that don't have giving tools turned on at all. And they're like, what in the world do we even do? We've got a lot of great resources. I've been able to take some time to understand where they're coming from. A lot of these nonprofits that I've talked to are small and very much similar to y'all on the call today, where they have maybe 1,000 followers. They don't have giving tools turned on, but they know and they've heard and they've seen the larger nonprofits do these challenges that are wildly successful, bring in great revenue, and they want to do the same thing. There's some basic concepts and understanding though of baby steps, right? Just getting giving tools turned on takes you 3 weeks, give or take. And then a well executed and well thought through challenge takes time, takes effort, takes management from an ads perspective and investment, community management within those challenge groups, as well as strategy. Like, as much as I would love to think that I could run an Air Jordan 1 challenge where you you show all your shoes and whatnot, I don't think it's going to go well. Like, you think about Molly, the walks always are ultra popular. I think I've seen some pickleball ones in the past. And the idea is that you got to know your subscriber base. And by subscriber, I also mean your community on Facebook. So long story short, again, we're back to segmentation. I always get someone upset with segmentation with me, but it's a way of life. And really, if you're not thinking about how do you like make these messages to your specific set of individuals that you know fit a demographic, fit a segment of life, or in general, you all have different segments internally. Like, that's a key thing to understand how to deliver that conversational piece. I'm not going to talk to Molly about my Air Jordan 1 collection. But I could talk about
later.
Oh, I can, but I could talk about dogs. Like, it's that kind of one-to-one idea. We got a couple people outlining here too. Let's see this. Jennifer, we've been using Facebook giving tools for about 5 years. Our fundraisers are bringing a lot less money for the past few months. Oh, I was hoping for this. Molly, we can say this for Q&A. We can knock this out now. This idea that fundraising in general on Facebook's declining, I've gone on record and saying, I'm not going to disagree with that. And there's a lot of reasons, a lot of macro, a lot of micro reasons behind that. Jennifer, I'd be curious to see if that's a monetary number you're able to actually attribute directly, or is that just a lack of activity? I know we've seen a massive dip back in 2022 that finally leveled out towards the back end of Q3. Now it's steady-ish growth with the customers that we work with, about 2 to 3% month over month. It's not a whole bunch. It's not like it was COVID, where it was just like gold rush for everyone. So that's really interesting. Let's check this out. John's stating, hey, it's gangbusters in 2017. You are an early adopter, so I've read the history books on this one, but it's now about half of where we were at in 2019. It's just not an uncommon story. Let's drop in Darlene. We've seen a huge drop in activity and giving on Facebook fundraisers on Facebook in the last year to year and a half, and haven't changed our messaging strategy. And that may be a piece of it too, Molly. I'll let you kind of subject. There's a lot of people telling the same story here. And one more from Jennifer coming back. I haven't compared the numbers over time, but the biweekly deposits to our account have gone from 15. So that's a 66% drop, give or take, on the high versus the low months for them. Daria, I haven't recovered. They haven't recovered from a year and a half ago. It's 5% fundraising, 5% of our previous level. That's pretty dramatic. Molly, like, we could probably do a whole nother growth lab on this alone. And if y'all want that, use the comments. And I'm sure I'll drag Molly around for another one of these. But like,
I can touch on it. Yeah, for
let's
sure.
do it. Yes, I tricked you into it.
Why not? Let's do it. So without a doubt, I mean, everyone is feeling and seeing that. Again, the gold rush of 2017 through 2019 is no longer here. And that was kind of like just made worse by macro factors. So COVID, economic shifts, wars and news cycles. But essentially what happened to why even after leveling out, after that severe decline, we still aren't seeing like historic numbers is because of competition. So there is so much more competition from nonprofits taking advantage of Facebook giving tools as they should. So no longer is the birthday algorithm prompting everyone for your nonprofit specifically. They might be prompting someone to do a birthday fundraiser for a more local nonprofit in their area based on the details that Facebook knows about them within their algorithm. So absolutely, there's more competition, and that has affected everyone across the board. But I will say that we have looked very closely into this. And one of the reasons why we run challenges as like a short-term acquisition strategy is because that kind of helps level out the decline in organic birthday fundraising. So we've been able to kind of combat the decline in birthday fundraising organically with challenges and also with subscriber growth. So one of the best things that I've done recently is try to acquire subscribers. If you think about those that follow or like your page, you can't really do much with them. So obviously you might be able to create like a lookalike audience, but you don't know who they are. You don't know what they did, and you don't know why they support you. So getting them into Messenger puts a name to that supporter. And it also gives us more contextual and behavioral information so that we can ask them to take an action of joining a challenge, pledging their next birthday in the future to make that decline in birthday fundraising may be less drastic and more predictable. An example would be if someone was a birthday fundraiser in the past, reactivating them and asking them if they would like to pledge a future birthday in Messenger, and then prompting them when their birthday is here in Messenger with a way to do that, versus kind of waiting on the algorithm to hopefully prompt them to start a birthday fundraiser for your organization.
That's perfect. And I know, oh goodness, we could probably go on forever on this one too. It's a lot to do with the macro events of the world that we can't control. So spikes and dips, right? The war in Ukraine is a great example where the humanitarian focused organizations, I believe a handful of them saw a decent spike of March last year. And then as time gone on, that's kind of waned off, right? And that comes and goes. That's stuff you can't control. Best you could do is have a plan for when something happens. And that is not saying like we want something to happen, but like in the case of that, like be ready, right? To go and mobilize. For me, the three takeaways here, as we think about wrapping it up real quick, get Facebook giving tools turned on. Like if you're a nonprofit today that is here wondering what in the world we're talking about, like that's the first step. I've got resources for y'all. Please message me. You have one of my emails, reply. I'll get you the ebook that literally walks you through. It takes about maybe no more than about 30 minutes to complete, and then about 2 to 3 weeks to get approved. That's step one, right? The next thing is understand your existing Facebook community. And we've touched on the segmentation piece. And also we need to make sure to come back around to where do I find my subscribers and nonprofit manager. Molly, I'll let you take that over in just a second. But then allows you to know, is it recurring? Is it a one-time donation? Is it a birthday fundraiser? You could do all that from Nonprofit Manager. I'm getting all my acronyms mixed up here. Also, obviously we'll touch on the Good United platform in just a second about what you're able to do through that as well. And then the last thing here is build a conversation plan for Facebook Messenger. Easy as that. And that could be as simple for y'all starting off as just making sure you're thanking birthday fundraisers, understanding when and where and how to use that broadcast, that group message that Molly touched on. And then obviously there's other options to do that, but like you got to have a plan, understand where you want to go. Then you can start to mobilize on the revenue, on the building your community, your subscriber base. But you got to start with the plan. Like it's drilled into us from our CEOs, Nick and Jeremy. You can't expect to win if you don't have a plan. Quote me on that one. Give me credit for that. So Molly, I don't have the screenshot available, but there is a toggle and a switch you can in within Nonprofit Manager that you can see your subscriber types. For those that want it, drop a comment. I'll get that sent out. Maybe I'll just include it in the general follow-up tomorrow. Molly, if you can help me get that so I can show an outline where that works. That way we can make sure we can understand where we can make sure we know what type of supporters we have and how to access and quickly cycle through that. Okay, we are at how do I get into Nonprofit Manager? It's another question from Jennifer. I think two things, Jennifer. We'll get you taken care of post this. I'll get you some resources. Also, I get a feeling that boot camp in early June with Molly and a few other team members here are going to be clutch in a lot of ways and hopefully helpful. So I'll make sure to have my team flag that. I'll follow up directly to provide that. And then finally, I'm looking at we're 7 minutes till the top of the hour. We're actually going through and keeping on time, which is great. The last thing about this too is we've spent a lot of time over the last year plus, and you may have seen emails from me or my fellow teammates posted on LinkedIn about what in the world is this platform Good United about. Thankfully, what we talked about today, you heard Molly mention using a supporter journey to help stop soldier suicide, ramp up that engagement and save them money. This is everything we've been working on for the last 7 years. And I got lucky dropping it at the tail end of things to help, but this is a new platform that focuses on helping nonprofits raise funds more effectively on Facebook through Facebook Messenger, and specifically using conversational messaging styles as a way to boost engagement and boost revenue, right? You can scan that. It's going to drop you onto our pricing page. But effectively what it is 20 plus supporter journey templates that are already pre-made. If you use MailChimp or anything like a messaging platform, you kind of understand this idea of templates that are, for us, it's taken it from 7 years of best practices and distilled into these 20 journeys. It's a phenomenal thing where literally you could deploy it within a handful of minutes. You could make slight edits to match your brand, your voice, but the end result is you have messaging journeys that are attributable, which is a huge thing. Like you're actually measuring your efforts and the outcome of those efforts. But then you can see subscriber growth, your revenue generated from messaging over time, which hasn't been really necessarily something that's, Molly, correct me again if I'm wrong, easy to do with Nonprofit Manager, especially thinking about the donation receipts and the mess of numbers and letters that come out of those things. It's hard. For this specifically, like it's a new platform. So we've got about 20 or 30 different opening slots available. I talked Nick, our CEO, into letting me do a few things for the Nonprofit Growth Lab community. If you're interested in understanding what this looks like or what this could do for your organization, it could be as little as 5 followers all the way up to hundreds of thousands of millions. It doesn't matter. It's a cool thing. It's scalability. It's $2.99 a month. Scan the QR code, but specifically, I'm able to waive the traditional onboarding fee that you would have with a SaaS platform if we want to get into a conversation within the next 7 days, right? That's about as hard of a pitch as I'll ever get on Nonprofit Growth Lab. Again, like this is one of those things where it's almost too good not to try. We tried really hard to make this entry point and cost something that's available for everyone, right? So if you're interested, let me know. Scan that. You'll take to a form fill on our pricing page, drop a little note to us, and I'll get to you right away. I think we got 20 or 30 different slots that are still open for this. Molly, from your point of view, is there anything that we missed? I'm going to have to go back through some of the comments. I know there's some that I wasn't able to get to today. Jennifer and Darlene, thank you for interacting. It's always comforting seeing people interact on the chat side. We'll get some of those resources around Nonprofit Manager followed up with too and submitted for everyone. Molly, before we wrap up, we're 4 minutes ahead of time, which is great. Anything from you? Last thoughts, last things to take away from today before we call it?
I think the main takeaway for me and for our partners is absolutely that Messenger is kind of the key to unlocking a lot of lifetime value from your supporters. So no matter the size of your organization, you have people that are following your page and that want to hear from you. And I think you would be surprised how much people are yearning for like a one-to-one conversation because they have a lot to share with you. So I think being open to kind of having conversations with your supporters and Messenger and also not overloading your staff or your resourcing is something that every nonprofit should definitely consider.
Sweet. Thank you, Molly. And I see a lot of questions, which again, I think within that boot camp that we're going to play in subscriber management and understanding, it's going to be a key thing for that. So Darlene, be on the lookout for that. On behalf of Molly, myself, I have Brenna here running operations behind me and the rest of the GU team. Thank you so much for joining us today. This will be sent out on demand tomorrow, which is a Friday. For everyone else viewing this on demand, this is on our website. Thank you for stopping by and watching until May 4th, the next Nonprofit Growth Lab. Thanks so much and have a great one.